Hello guys, and welcome to the second out of 32 videos that I'll be doing for 7-round mock drafts for every single team in chronological order of their draft position. If there are trades that end up happening, I will still be going per what the original first 32 teams were in order and that sort of thing. I mean, obviously, as we get closer, there may be more things that are likely to happen, but as of right now, it's still kind of quiet. Like I did in my last one, I will be using Ourlads to look at the players acquired in free agency and to look at these teams, to see what I think, they could draft. Obviously, with the Browns and these early picks, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I think the picks are kind of somewhat decided, but who knows with the Browns? I mean, what an organization, to say the least. But without further ado, let me start us off. So, yeah, the Titans going Cam Ward, not a shocker there. This is kind of one of those things to me that it's like, you wonder if they're going to be able to get rid of Deshaun Watson. I honestly think that it's like, you might be able to give him another chance. You don't really know, whether or not, you're going to have, I mean, to me, you don't really know whether or not you're going to have issues with trying to draft, Shadir Saunders, and that sort of thing. I personally think that Shadir Saunders could go, here, or he could go to New York. Who knows? I personally am of the opinion that it's like they should draft Abdul Carter. They're not going to be able to go for. They obviously paid Myles Garrett, and they're not going to be able to go for after a marquee guy, or pay a marquee guy for, a good number of years. So it's like, I think that that's just like a no-brainer pick to me. Tell me I'm crazy, and it's like, you look at some of these, other ones, it's like, it's kind of one of those, interesting things where it's like, yeah, Travis Hunter goes here, and then it's like, where does even he go? Is he still on the board? That would be obviously a nuts thing, in terms of QBs. So Shadir Saunders is still there, ranked 47. Who the heck knows? If he falls here, I do think they draft him. Obviously, there's no way that, the other pick would fall here, and then we go to the next pick in the third round. What does this team need? I just think that, looking at their roster, it's like the defense, I don't think is an issue. I don't really see them drafting too much there. I mean, maybe you could draft like a middle linebacker, or maybe a safety or something like that, or a defensive interior, but they signed Malik Collins, so it's like, I don't think that that's a long-term solution. Perhaps it is. But to me, it's like, I honestly look for wide receivers because it's like, as we know, Jerry Jeudy did well last year. Then they have Michael Woods II, Cedric Tillman, Jamari Thrash, and then Caden Davis. And it's like, so you have and then David Bell. So you have 6 guys on the roster. Maybe you're looking to there, to be honest with you. And it's like, I do think Jalen Noel is a guy that, and looking at him, I think is a dude who can come in and, be a good player. He's kind of the same mold, as Jerry Jeudy, but it's like Jeudy, I don't think he doesn't need to play inside and that sort of thing. And, Jalen Noel's been kind of on the rise. And I think, you need to go wide receiver here. It's like one of those things that I think that you're revamping your offense and you're giving whoever the quarterback is either new toys or more solid toys besides Jerry Jeudy. Now moving on to and still in round 3, later in round 3, obviously. we have, this. And it's like, I think there are some good halfbacks in this class. I looked at Devin Neal yesterday for, the other one. He's a stocky guy. You know, he's an alluring prospect. I think he could honestly work on this team. I also think this team needs O-line, though. And it's like, looking at their O-line from left tackle to right tackle, it's like you have DeJuan Jones, Joel Bitonio, Ethan Pocic, Wyatt Teller, and Jack Conklin. And, you acquired, Cornelius Lucas and Brady Latham. But it's like Brady Latham here is listed as like your third left guard. And it's like your tackle play last year was pretty bad. Jonas Savanea. Sorry if I butchered that. I just think that you need a good pass blocker. And if you look at a guy like this who's got an above average pass block grade, and, good size and that sort of thing. So it's like, if he has a chance to stick a right tackle or inside for a zone rushing team. I don't know quite what they run. It's like the offense for Cleveland was dog water last year. But it's like this is a guy who looks like you can plug and play, to block for your QB and that sort of thing. Now going on to round 4, not that many picks later, we still have Devin Neal available. You know what? I'm gonna pull this and say that they draft Devin Neal here. A stocky guy, a strong guy. And it's like looking, to this, we are in round 6, but we still have a ton more picks. What do you look at here? I feel like you do look to tackle potentially. And it's like maybe even center. You have Ethan Pocic there, who snapped for Seattle last year. And Seattle's interior wasn't very good. It's like, what are you going to go for? Gap grade, zone grade. A guy at this point, it's like first look, a 6'5", 310 center. So not a, he obviously this sort of thing. I think this guy could be an alluring prospect due to the fact that like teams saw how good the Eagles were with, being able to have athletic centers move around, these last 2 years. So I'm going to go with Jonah Monheim as your guy that maybe you have it in a competition or something else. Moving on to pick 192. To me, it's like you could upgrade defensive interior. The defensive interior class is very good this year. You don't really need a tight end. You have David Njoku and then Blake Whiteheart. Perhaps you could add somebody, like a Jalen Conyers here, who has a pretty decent contested catch rate, but then can also run block. We all know that David Njoku isn't very good. He's your typical receiving threat tight end. Maybe you can add a guy like this who, gets a good amount of yards per reception, has a little bit of, touchdowns and that sort of thing. Doesn't look like he played a ton of snaps either. But it was obviously somewhat of a red zone threat, being a taller and bigger guy. So it's like, I think, it might be a little bit out of the norm, but Jalen Conyers here kind of makes sense to me. You get a guy who can maybe block and, help in that sort of instance. Now looking at this, I think now is where you kind of look for defensive interior. I guess there's none really like right here. But let me see. Position, defensive interior, who do we have? Kind of a reach for any of these guys. Cam Horsley out of Boston. I know that, this guy has some good, good looks, good size, and, could potentially play a decent amount of hurries, but a very good run defense type of thing, which you kind of want, if Myles Garrett is going to force guys back on the inside, or depending on who you have. So I'm going to go Cam Horsley here. I think a very solid pickup for them late who can compete. And now we're at the final pick in round 6, a compensatory pick. And we can look, perhaps to interior O-line. We already drafted a center, so that's kind of off the board. We've got Timothy McKay here. To me, run block, zone grade, a little bit, above average, pass block, very average there. But did play right guard, quite a bit, a little bit of right tackle, clearly a failed experiment and that sort of thing. They permanently moved him to right guard, for North Carolina, the Wolfpack. And it's like, that isn't Wyatt Teller, to me, was on a, acquired from Buffalo. Maybe isn't your guy. I think Joel Bitonio, but it's like you look at this and the right tackle position, maybe you add a guy like this for depth who played against some decent competition, and was never horrible, I guess. Gave up 2 sacks out of, pass block snaps, 456. I don't think that's terrible and decent value for this point in the draft. And then we move on to round 7, having one more pick. And looking at the picks we've made, we've addressed edge, QB, wide receiver, tackle, halfback, center, tight end, defensive interior, and then guard. This is kind of a pick where I'm like, maybe you are just going for the best available. Maybe you're going for a guy that's developmental. I do think that they need like a safety, on this team, potentially. Obviously, a guy like this being drafted near the end, but, oh goodness, what am I? Oh, I meant to click on goodness. Totally clicked the wrong position there. Dante Trader Jr., played a lot of defensive snaps, had 4 pass rushes, had only 3 missed tackles. I think that that's really good, and it's like snaps by alignment. You've got D-line, kind of nuts there. Obviously, like a shorter, stockier kind of guy. Maybe not that stocky, I guess, but, and then in the box and then deep, and it's like tackles 49, assisted tackles 10. Obviously, clearly a pretty good solo tackle, only 3 missed tackles. I think that, looking at this guy, played a good number of snaps. Obviously didn't play, a ton of marquee talent. I guess a good amount, in all honesty. Missed some games, it looks like, but it's like a very solid run defense grade. So it's like maybe you get him in on some hybrid looks, to see what you have in a guy like this. Because I think that, not that I don't mind. I like Grant Delpit. I think he's, a good run defender, safety. And then it's like Ronnie Hickman, though. I'm kind of like, add some depth in there. You only have 4 guys. So looking at this, obviously some very good grades here. Overall draft of B+. I guess they didn't really like the defensive interior that I grabbed here. Maybe a little bit of a reach, I guess. But it's like, are you really going to trade back in round 6? You're just really, I think, going to go for what you need and that sort of thing. So it's like, overall, I think, this would be a very good draft. You have a lot of picks is like the only, recollection for what was a dismal year for the Browns. And it's like, I wonder if, this could be your last, son for Stefanski. I know people like to say that he was a former coach of the year, but in my opinion, I just don't think he's done enough. And it's like, this is an offense that's just been abysmal. Even before they got Deshaun Watson. It's like, you've been on the biggest just QB rotation. You've been going through QBs like their chump change, for a long time now. It's like, I think they're at like 30 in the last however many years, and it's just insane. So it's like, draft some weapons, get some decent pieces on offense, that are some cheap talent that could help you, and I think that overall, a draft like this, would be very, very good, I guess. And I guess, okay, so one of the suggested we drafted Jalen Noel, but like Darian Porter, kind of interesting at CB. They said that they need CB on this team, but it's like I think Newsome and Denzel Ward are still one of the top tandems in the league. Obviously, Martin Emerson Jr. to me, maybe, could be replaced. But it's like then you also have a guy that we obviously drafted down here, that did play in the box and played a little bit of slot in Dante Trader Jr. that you could maybe, play a little bit depending on what you're wanting to do. Obviously, a good scheme to get involved in as a DB when you would have two what should be perennial pass rushers with Abdul Carter and then, of course, Myles Garrett. But if you guys like this draft, comment on it. Tell me anything you would have traded. Tell me if you feel like they don't actually need some of these positions. I would love to hear that as well, or start a discussion in the comments. But as always, this is CastCast, and go Pack Go.